Let's start over here with Nick. Can I get each one of you to give your name, your position in the office, and what your role with regard to the Senator's website is?
Check. My name is Nick Buddy. I'm the Systems Administrator for Senator John Thune. I guess as far as our website's concerned, I guess the thing that was most important to us was keeping the local issue link stuff up to date. People were concerned with different items, especially this year in the Senate with the Farm Bill. That was a large piece of legislation to our state, and so we wanted to make sure there were several resources about that were linked from the site.
Great. How about you, Scott?
My name is Scott Gerber. I'm Senator Feinstein's Communications Director. My role really, we did a big site redevelopment this past year. We launched it in February. So we had to go back, start from scratch, see what kind of site we wanted to have, and then build it essentially from scratch using some of the resources that we had on our old site, but really trying to make it a modern site with a modern database behind it that was visually and content strong. So that was basically what we did over the past year.
Great.
And I'm Colin Burton. I'm actually not from an office, but I am the writer and one of the evaluators for the GoldMouse report. So if anyone has any kind of overall questions about trends or what we've seen from actually doing the evaluations, you can ask me.
Hi, I'm Jared Whitley. I'm the Deputy Press Secretary for Senator Hatch, and I upload all the web content that's related to press releases and whatnot. And because the website, hatch.senate.gov, is a component of the Senator's communication outreach, I manage most of the website content as well.
Great. I wanted to find out from each one of you what you think maybe most contributed to the success of your site. Is it your boss's input, or is it that you have everyone on staff working with you, or what would you say contributed to your success?
In our case, I would say definitely our staff. Everyone has really bought into the idea that this is a tool to reach constituents so that they can get their information out on the different issues that they handle. After important legislation, they will draft up new statements on issues and even just check periodically to make sure that everything is up to date.
In our case, it was really the press office driving the process. We had to get approval and sign off from the chief of staff and the senator, but really we directed the redesign and then manage what goes up on the site on a given day or a given week. And we have to reach out to all the various components of our office, state office, legislative office, but it's really centralized in our press office.
Great. How about you?
The thing that made our website successful,
yeah.
I would say plagiarism. When I first started 2 years ago, I was given the task to make some website adjustments and improvements, and I started by looking at other Senate websites which were successful and copying ideas that they had, and when possible trying to do them better than what they did. I'll give an example.
Sure.
Senator Kennedy has this really nice timeline on his website of his legislative accomplishments from the time he's been in the Senate. And so I decided to do the same thing for my boss, but to do it slightly better. I may or may not have brought a visual aid. So that when you go to hatch.senate.gov and you say, oh, well, what has Orrin Hatch done for Utah? We have this huge timeline. I'm not really tall enough for him. That shows some of his major legislative accomplishments throughout the past 30 years. And I know that's something that took a lot of time and a lot of resources, both from me and other people on the staff, especially the archivist. But, oh, let's see if my intern wants to get a picture of this. But it's something that's an incredible resource, especially when we have, like, kids email in who have to represent the senator in some kind of mock Congress or whatever. We can just send them links to it, and it's very, very useful.
Great.
Let me just back that up. There are a lot of very good Senate websites. Senator Thune has a terrific one. That was one of the sources for our website, so thank you.
Yeah, we find that a lot when we talk to our award-winning offices, that they really are piecing together their website based on what they see their colleagues doing. It's sort of the Frankenstein approach to web development of, saying, I like this from this member's press room, I like the way this member's bio is is laid out, and pulling all of that information together and pulling a site together. It looks like you have
This is
some show and tell as well.
This is our site, which is, it's actually pretty similar to Thune's, but it shows you what the difference design makes, because it looks totally different when you look at it. But if you look at it structurally, you've got press releases, and then photos, and then one thing highlighted here, and then our legislative priorities. One thing I really like is we have brought all of our services to Californians right up to the homepage, so that somebody who wants just a flag doesn't have to look throughout the entire site to see it. They can just go see it right on the homepage. It makes it really easy for our front desk, because they can just give them one website instead of /////. So lots of good ideas in a lot of different places. But the content and the design of your particular site will make it unique to you and hopefully represent your boss's image and who she is or who he is.
We talked about the freshman offices who had award-winning websites, and that what I think is encouraging about that is that it shows that that somebody can come in and in pretty short order, within 6 or 7 months, go through a process of relaunching a website. Of course, they don't have the volume or the library of information that a Senate office who's been here for a number of years might have, but they were doing what you all talked about, pulling from veteran member websites to come up with their own version. Anybody in the audience have questions? Yeah.
I have 2 questions.
Sure.
If someone were to go in and completely rebuild their website, but does not necessarily have someone with a technical specialty in it, what are some of the options available in terms of your thoughts on different independent contractors that can come in to do that or whatever? And do you feel that you need to have someone that can maintain it from a technical aspect after it's built? Or is that something that someone with a lesser degree could just maintain it?
Most vendors, and maybe...
I'll talk about
Sure.
that. There are really 3 ways you can do it. You can do it in-house, you can do it through the DPC or the RPC, depending on how busy they are, or you can do an outside vendor. It doesn't really matter. What matters is how effective their design is. And there's something that Tim hasn't even brought up, which is the back end of the site. So it used to be that if you put up a new press release, you'd have to go up to Dreamweaver and paste it in and do all the formatting and style changes. There's this content management systems where instead of doing that, you create a massive database on the back end where you can take a Word document, copy it, paste it in, hit submit, and it automatically comes up at the top of your page here, on the top of your press release page, on the top of your issues page. And so it really cuts down on the technical expertise that you need in the press office, and makes it much easier to keep your website up to date and interesting and good.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to know if you track the information on which sites use vendors that got mouse awards versus those that maintain things in-house.
Sure. Yeah, the question was whether or not we tracked whether award-winning offices were using certain vendors or services from, like you mentioned, the DPC or RPC. And we asked all of our winners, our 2006 winners last year, the last time we did our report, how they were administering their website. And we thought we'd get, we could put them into 3 buckets, essentially. People who had really technically savvy staffers who were building it from the ground up, people who were using a vendor, or people who were using services from the institution, whether it's DPC or RPC on the Senate side, or the House actually has services where they'll help you build your website. And we found that there was no easy answer for that. What we found was that people would say, well, a vendor created the site for us, but then we moved the hosting inside, and then we do a little HTML on the side. And so there isn't one web vendor that has the corner on the best websites. What we found among our gold, silver, and bronze Mouse Award winners, that they fall into all of those categories. Some of them are, yeah.
We used a vendor, and it should be clear, there was cost associated with the design, but there's very little cost associated with the maintenance. If we want something, they did the entire back end. We actually used the same vendor that they used.
And now you maintain it
Essentially, yeah.
The same, we use a vendor.
And actually, we all use the same vendor.
Oh, do you?
Oops.
Well, there you go.
Well, but you just have to out there. In maintaining it in-house, is it particular software that you use? You mentioned Dreamweaver, but, I'm old and that's far above my age.
It's all part of the package that the vendor gave us. It's a back-end, database-driven software. You log in, it's web-based, fill in the information in the appropriate spots, and it goes there. You just have to make sure that you have the content for it. As they've said, the vendor does a lot of the design, and I know in our office we worked very closely with the vendors to create that design and the image that we wanted to project for the office. But maintenance is very, very easy. Anyone in the office could do it.
Right. It's for text, it's just copying and pasting. Mm-hmm. For putting up a photo, it's just browsing to the particular photo. For putting up video, it's essentially the same thing. So it's really easy. I can do it. If I can do it, you can do it.
And somebody can
Also-
be trained in just a few minutes to.
Interns do it.
Yeah.
Also, something I think it's important to add is the Senate Republican Conference, which of course we use, and I'm sure the Democratic counterparts as well, offer a lot of multimedia resources that you can just piggyback off of and copy and paste onto your website to enhance it.
Any other questions? Okay.
Just as a follow-up?
Yeah.
Which vendor?
Let's see if we can get some endorsement money before we start saying that right there.
For people who want to know, I'll tell them afterwards, but we're not going to advertise.
One of the challenges that we've had with regard to our website is that we've had some pushback from legislative staff about posting additional information on the website because they believe that it would increase their workload rather than reduce their workload. Is there any empirical evidence that you collected that it does in fact reduce the workload? If you put the frequently asked questions about casework, those kinds of things? Although we started to do a lot of that, it's mostly been driven by the communication shop, and we still have a lot of frustration with legislative folks. If we give you that information, then they'll just ask more questions, and it'll make our job harder to answer the questions.
Sure. The question again was whether or not there's any empirical evidence about the workload decreasing in the office if more information is posted on the site. The person in the audience asked whether the LAs are saying that they might actually get their workloads increased if they put too much information. Do one of you want to? Sure.
This might be, I can't really see you very well, Susan. Something that, hi. I think people that will go to a senator's website and who want to interact with their federal representative are going to find some means with which to interact with them. Because we've had this same debate in our office. We provide all these knowledge about what Senator Hatch's stance is on different issues. And that way they don't need to email in and say, what does the senator think about gun control? They can just read about what he thinks about gun control. But then they'll have an extra question on that and they'll want to email in about that. And so I don't think it would necessarily make extra work. It would just change the kind of work. So
That's kind of the argument that they're coming up with, that if we say, here's what my position is, here's what Senator Crapo's position is on X, Y, Z, then they're going to ask the next question, which means that we have to find out that much more information, whereas if they just wrote us a letter, then we could respond to the first one, and then we wouldn't have to keep going back and forth on it.
What's
I'm
hard
bossy and I overruled them, but
What's hard to gauge, though, is how many people don't write the letter at all because they come to the website and they find the answer that they were looking for, and so then they don't write they feel like they already understand where the senator's coming from. And so I think your LCs might tell you that they probably, their sense anyway would be that, they get less mail the more information there is on the website, but we don't have any empirical data to.
Right, and we actually had a panel on the House side this morning, and one of the award winners from the Committee on Science and Technology, this was one of the things she actually found is their website was so good and they got people calling in, they'd say, just go to the website. They focused on the website, and then the actual number of calls that they got did decrease. So at least anecdotally, that's true. We don't have hard facts on that.
any kind of suggestion on how to educate staff to be able to direct people to the website? I've had some who would say, Well, if we don't answer their question, then we feel like, we're just, go to the website, go to the website, go to the website. And we tried to suggest some language to them on, well, I'd be happy to give you that answer, and, and if you want to follow along with me, or if you're near the computer, just log on Senator's website. But I have yet to strike the magic formula.
I think you really raise a good question, because the website is not a silver bullet. You're not going to just say, go to the website, ignore the office, because your senator, my senator, wants our offices to be friendly and welcoming, and if somebody calls asking a question, we're going to answer their question. We're not going to send them to the website. At the same time, what the website is very good at is making certain things easier. You want to submit a scheduling request. Well, it used to be you had to fax a request to our schedulers. You can just go onto our website and have an email request go right to them. You want a flag. You used to have to go and fax a letter or write a letter and ask for a flag. Now you can just go to the website. So it's really a balance, and you have to strike your own balance for what your office is going to do and what's going to be online.
Any other questions? Yes.
This is more on content. When you said you went through and looked at old sites, and there was a lot of older information. For someone with bosses who've been around for 30 years, we have a lot of information. Is it better to do one site that has all the legislative stuff, in their biography, and then the issues pages are only this Congress and not other areas? How do you bring it up to date while still having the older information available?
That's a great question. Colin, do you want to?
Well, when we look for the evaluations and what people are looking for, we encourage people to post as much information as possible, but just make sure that when they access the information, they can see the most current information first, and then it's good to have, the full range of activities of the senator on the website. But the more important thing is to make sure that the most current information is noticeable or more prominent, so that when people go to the website, they can know that this is a resource I can check back on and continue to check back on because it's kept up to date.
Something that we do with press releases on our different issues pages is they're live for a while and then they kind of time out. So for example, on a veterans and defense page, we might have press releases that go back the last 2 or 3 years. But then after 2 or 3 years are passed, then the last couple of press releases at the bottom will disappear. So you won't see every press release Senator Hatch has ever sent out about veterans for the last 30 years. You can still search the website and find them. They're still there. It's not like we yank them off, but they're not on the issues page, so it's not like you're overwhelming people.
Yes.
How does the CMF determine audience for committees versus personal offices? In terms of there's different 5 different rankings in terms of determining the audience.
Sure. Do you want to?
Well, this year, who did we work with?
We had a contact in the Library of Congress who we sat down with to sort of run by the folks at the LOC what our sort of gut reaction might be as to how to classify committees, and even leadership offices are classified somewhat differently based on their primary audience. But they essentially fell into whether the committee has a primary internal audience, like rules or some of the other committees that have a primary function inside the institution, whether they had a professional audience like environment and public works, or financial services, where you have a lot of professional people coming to the site, or whether it's a non-professional audience, that a Veterans Affairs Committee or the Veterans Committee, where you have members of the public coming for information. And that's who helped us do the classification, and that's the basic way they were classified. Any other questions? Yes?
I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about leadership websites and what your expectations were there.
Sure.
Leadership was in line with committee, where we had kind of public audience, private audience. It's important, especially for committees and leadership, for you guys to know who have a primarily internal audience. Anything you do internally that isn't accessible to the public, we weren't able to evaluate, because our main push was to evaluate from the end user, so from a constituent. And for committees and leadership, we did look for all audiences, so that's constituents, that's professionals, that's the public, and that's press. But we try to incorporate into our evaluations is some recognition of the fact that some audiences are more important than others for leadership and committee sites.
Any other questions? Yes.
I was just wondering, because it ties into the need for the legislative staff to buy in, if you all are tracking the stats for different pages on your sites to show staff how often the healthcare page is visited, or the constituent services page, or something like that. If you're tracking it, if you should then share it with your staff, and does that work? Is it encouraging the office to update it more, or contribute more content online? Because it might be something that's beneficial for the other office to make. Okay.
Sure.
I haven't tracked in a while, but it's a good idea and we should do it more.
Yeah, we view the stats pretty regularly, but haven't really drilled down into individual issue pages necessarily, but there's definitely traffic there.
Yeah.
I have a question in terms of staff resource, in terms of updating, after you get it up, to get that gold or silver status, do you need someone either with the technical savviness or the maybe committing a certain amount of time, 50%, 10%? That's the question in terms of, is it something that I can have someone that just commit 10% of their time working and updating and getting to that level?
I actually think there's great value in having someone who has control of the website who is not incredibly technically savvy, because you don't want some guy with a PhD in computer science from Caltech or whatever masterminding everything, because then I think your website will be more complicated. Something that we found that's been really successful is the axiom less is more, because if it's simple and easy to use, then that's what you want. Then it'll be more navigable for your constituents. And so I think to have someone who's not super technically savvy doing it is not a bad idea.
I guess the question I follow up on that is, in terms of dedicating staff resources, the ones that did well, how much time do they actually, the workload, can I have someone spend 10% of their time among other duties to manage the website? Will I be able to kind of get to that level?
Let me give that a shot. In terms of getting the design and structure up, it's going to take a lot of resources up front. So somebody's going to have to spend 50, 60, 100 hours doing that. Once you have your design set, on a regular basis, the actual time you spend is fairly minimal, but you need to think about it like every month or every time something's hot where you want to have a new issue page. That's going to take, a couple hours, but it's not a tremendous time suck once the site is up and running.
I think it depends also a lot on what's happening. If there's a lot of stuff happening in your committee, in your case, then you would need to spend more time, obviously, updating the site.
Yeah.
Since you guys use vendors, I'm worried about turnaround time on adding new features or new sections of a website. For instance, if you wanted to suddenly have a passport section because of all the passport issues that came up last year, would you turn that into your vendor and they would have to turn that around, or do you do it all in-house yourself?
We have, our database is created in a way where we can create new priorities pages, issues pages, accomplishments pages, using the same system, so cut and paste. Where we don't have the capabilities is for icons and graphics. And so either we can go to the DPC and ask for them to do a little icon or graphic for us, or we can go to the vendor. It would take a day or two to get that set. But once you have the content, it's just a matter of cutting and pasting.
A lot of that also, to answer that question, is the time of the year that you ask for it. We asked for some stuff in January when there were all these freshman House and Senate members, and the responses were very slow because the priority was to the new members. But if you wait, like if you ask for something during recess, like in the summer, like in August or whatever, then you'll probably get a lot quicker response.
Any other questions? Well, I want to thank each one of our panelists for joining us today. I think if our panelists can stick around for a few minutes, CMF, Colin, and I will stick around to answer any other questions that you might have. I want to thank each one of you for taking the time out of your office, away from all of your work, to share your thoughts with the group. I wanted to just mention to you that in your packet there are evaluation forms, and we'd really appreciate it if you would take just a moment to fill that out so that we can have programs in the future that are helpful to you. And I want to thank you for coming. Thank you very much.
Thank you.